Alright, 2 years later and back with the info. Here are my predictions for UFC 114, fresh and intoxicated. Alright, I've been saying this all along and I'll back it until Saturday. Rashad Evans versus Quentin Rampage Jackson. I think this is obvious, and I think a lot of people are taking for granted that Rampage will win. Rampage has had over 14 months off. Rashad has had far less than that. I think Rashad has better head movement. I think Rashad has better hand speed. I think Rampage has a better chin. I think Rashad has better game planning. I think Rashad will take this to the ground. May not be the most interesting fight of the night, but will definitely be a fight for the fans. I think Rashad takes this one. I think this is about a 75% chance that Rashad wins this fight. I don't see Rampage winning this fight. I have seen a poll recently that says 19 people think Rampage wins, and 9 people out of serious MMA fans think that Rashad wins. I am one of those 9 people. Next, we have the co-main event, which is Michael Bisping versus Dan Miller. Dan Miller is coming off of a 2-fight win streak, or losing streak. I think Dan Miller is unfair in this fight, really. I think this is a feeder fight for Michael Bisping, and though I am not a big Michael Bisping fan, I think the odds favor Michael Bisping, and if I was a betting man, I would put money on Michael Bisping. If I was a man that was looking for the underdog fight, I think Dan Miller has a definite chance of pulling this off, but not a likely chance. Next we have Antonio Rogerio Nogueira versus Jason Brills, as opposed to versus Forrest Griffin, who pulled out of this fight about a month and a half ago. This could be the upset of the night. I think Jason Brills has definitely a chance. Let me repeat that, a chance of pulling this off. I think that this is firmly in Rogerio Nogueira's realm of winning. I think he will win this fight. I wouldn't be overwhelmed and floored if Jason Brills won this fight, but I think that this is firmly in the grasp of Rogerio Nogueira, so I would pick him to win this fight. Todd Duffy versus Mike Rousseau. This is one fight that I'm going to take the fan favorite being Todd Duffy, an overhyped guy, self-admittedly. I'm going to take Mike Rousseau. I think Mike Rousseau has the ground game and the stand-up game to win this, especially the ground game. Now, Todd Duffy definitely has the potential to win this. Don't get me wrong. I say this is about 60%, 65% or so in the favor of Mike Rousseau, and about 35% in the favor of Todd Duffy. Definitely an interesting fight. Diego Sanchez versus John Hathaway. John Hathaway being 12-0, Diego Sanchez being 21-3. I think Diego Sanchez is an idiot for moving back up to welterweight, but John Hathaway being 12-0, I'm not sure how this is going to favor. Honestly, this is a very even fight for me. Diego Sanchez very much the aggressor in this fight. John Hathaway very much the patient fighter in this fight. I'm going to edge out favor in John Hathaway's decision. I think he will barely take it out of the favor of Diego Sanchez. Again, this is a very close fight to call, but I do give it to John Hathaway. Next, we go to the the preliminary bouts that will be aired on Spike TV. This is where we get a little bit complicated. Don Young Kim, 12-0-1, the one draw being versus one of my favorite welterweights, Karo Parisian, which I know I am not largely in favor in that fight. I know there's a lot of Karo Parisian dissent out there, versus Amir Zadala, that's 3-1. I think this is clearly Dong Young Kim's fight. I really don't see any way that Amir Zadala is going to win this fight other than superior training. And if Dong Young Kim has not trained in the United States as in proper preparation for this fight, I think that he has a larger potential of losing. But I do believe he has been training in the U.S. for about the last 3 to 4 weeks for this fight. So I think he will be taking this fight. Another fight we have Efrain Escudero versus Dan Lazan. Based on what we have seen on the internet via Joe Lazan and the lack of preparation via Dan Lazan, I think this is clearly a fight that is going to go in Efrain Escudero's fight. This is like a 90% versus 10% fight for Efrain Escudero as a favored winner. Next we have Melvin Gillard versus Waylon Lowe. This is a fight that I'm not researched very well on, but I'm going to go ahead and give it to Melvin Gillard. Another fight we have is Lewis Kane versus Cyril Diabate. I know Cyril Diabate based on his lesser league record, and I have seen some of his fights and I've done some research of his other fights, but I still give this to Louis Kane. Joe Bramer versus Aaron Riley. I'm going to go ahead and give this to Aaron Riley via pure ignorance. I know nothing about Joe Bramer. Next, we go to Jesse Forbes versus Ryan Jensen. Ryan Jensen is obviously UFC favorite. Jesse Forbes is always going to come forward. From what I know about Jesse Forbes, he is very well trained for this fight, and he is ready to come back into the UFC and ready to make his mark. Ryan Jensen has been progressively lowering his stature on the UFC chain, and this is a make it or break it fight for Ryan Jensen. I'm going to go ahead and give this fight to Jesse Forbes. We're going to cross our fingers on this one and hope he wins. Now, UFC 115, there's one fight that is interesting on UFC 115, which is coming up, and that is the main event, which is Tuck Liddell versus Rich Ace Franklin. Now, Rich Ace Franklin is my number one guy as far as my favorites in the world. Rich Franklin is number one on my list, and Rashad Evans is number two on my list as far as favorite fighters in the world. I give this to Rich Franklin. We'll see what comes up on that card. That card is very, extremely weak. So we'll see what happens on that card, and I will be glad to see you coming up as far as that is concerned. I want to give shout-outs primarily to Wrath. My respects to Wrath. And my respects to his wife Olga, his dearly departed Olga. I have really been touched by your story, and more power to you. I love you, and I will see you later on in the next UFC predictions. Thank you, and goodbye.